In a market economy, or capitalist economy, prices of goods and services are determined by the interaction between supply and demand of goods and services. The government does not interfere, so that whenever demand is greater than supply, prices decrease. On the other hand, if supply is greater than demand, prices are higher. A market is a place where buyers and sellers meet. Any place where buyers and sellers argue to determine the price of a good is a well-known example of a market. A market exists when there is an interaction between buyers and sellers. The actions or decisions made by the buyers constitute demand for a product or service, while the actions or decisions made by the sellers constitute supply. Market demand. Market demand is the actual or potential demand for a product within a particular market. It also refers to the willingness and ability of the buyer to pay a sum of money for a particular good or service. The factors that affect demand for a particular good or service are income, preferences, taste, needs, and price. However, the most important factor is the price of the good or service. The law of demand. The law of demand states that the quantity of any good which buyers are ready to purchase varies inversely with the price of the good. This means that people will buy more goods if the price decreases, and the quantity of goods that will be bought diminishes when the price increases. The demand curve. The demand curve is a graphical illustration of the demand schedule. The price per unit is represented in a vertical axis, and the quantity demanded at each price is represented in a horizontal axis. The curve showing the inverse relationship between prices of goods and services and the quantity of goods and services demanded is known as demand curve, which is shown in this figure. Table shows that at 4,000 pesos per unit of cell phone, the total quantity demanded is 52 units. An increase in the price affects demand. At 20,000 pesos per unit of cell phone, demand decreases to 2 units only. It indicates that people will buy more of the product or service if the price decreases. When prices of the product or service decrease, it does not only motivate buyers to buy, but it attracts prospective buyers to buy. Slope of demand curve. Figure shows that the slope of demand curves vary from one point to another. The downward movement of the slope indicates that as the price of cell phone decreases, the demand for cell phone increases, and as the price increases, the demand for cell phone decreases. Determinants of demand. The factors that affect demand for goods or services are the following. 1. Income of the consumer. Some people only buy product or service as the need arises. If the income of an individual increases, he tends to buy more goods or services at any given time. 2. Price of related goods. Goods that are related tend to influence each other's demand. There are 2 types of related goods and services. Substitute goods are goods that compete with each other, while complement goods are goods which have no utility on their own but are combined with another product. 3. Consumers' taste or preferences. Consumers' taste or preferences affect the amount of goods they are willing to buy at a particular price. 4. Price expectation. When buyers expect that the price of the product or service increase in price, demand for its product or service increases. 5. Population. As the population increases in a particular area, demand for goods and services also increases. Market supply. Supply refers to the quantity of a good that will be offered for sale by the seller at a given price. The manufacturer or the seller can refuse to sell their products, especially if they don't agree with the price that is being offered to the buyers. Therefore, supply implies the ability and willingness of the sellers to sell their products to the buyers. Goods are sometimes scarce, and they can only be secured if the manufacturer will manufacture the products. In this way, manufacturers will be persuaded to exert more effort by manufacturing the goods so that they can supply goods to satisfy wants. The quantity of goods that will be offered for sale depends upon the price that manufacturers can get for their finished products. The law of supply. The quantity of goods offered for sale increases when there is an increase in price. The sellers are willing to sell more goods if the price increases. This has been observed in the market. The quantity of goods to be offered for sale and price is expressed in the law of supply, which states that the quantity of a good offered for sale at a given market at a particular time varies directly with the price. This means that when the price of good increases, the supply of a good also increases, and as the price of good decreases, the supply of a good also decreases. Supply schedule. The supply schedule is a table showing the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity to be supplied by the producers. There is a direct relationship between the price and the quantity supplied by the producer, which means that the supplier of the products will supply more when there are increases in prices. Table shows that at 4,000 pesos per unit of cell phone, the total quantity supplied is 2 units only. At 20,000 pesos per unit of cell phone, quantity supplied increases to 52 units. It indicates that the supplier will supply more units of cell phones when there is an increase in price. The supply curve. The supply curve is a curve showing the supply schedule. It shows the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied by the supplier. Slope of supply curve. Figure shows that the slope of the supply curve moves in an upward direction, indicating that as the price of cell phone increases, the quantity supplied also increases, and as the price of cell phone decreases, the quantity supplied also decreases. Determinants of supply. Aside from price, there are other factors that affect the supply for goods or services. These are the following. 1. Cost of production. Producing goods needs components that require the use of resources such as materials, machine, money, and technology. If the producer of the goods does not have the productive resources, he may prefer to purchase the goods and sell it. Production is the most important factor to consider whether to produce or purchase. If the cost of the raw materials increases, the supply of goods and services is lesser. However, when the cost of the raw materials decreases, the quantity of goods or services increases. This means that there will be more goods to be produced if the cost of raw materials is cheaper, and there will be lesser goods to be produced when the cost of raw materials is expensive. 2. Available resources. When there are more economic market resources, there will be more supply of goods in the market because the producer will produce more goods. 3. Number of suppliers and sellers. If there are more suppliers and sellers of goods, there are also more supplies of goods available in the market. However, when there are few suppliers and sellers of goods, there are lesser supplies of goods in the market. This means that the greater the suppliers and sellers of goods, there will be more supply, and the lesser the suppliers and seller of goods, the lesser the supplies it will be. 4. Technology. Technology is very important in the production of goods or services. Most manufacturing firms use the modern machines in producing goods or services at lower costs. Unlike during the primitive days that most firms use manual labor instead of machines, which is more expensive on the part of the manufacturer. 5. Taxes. Some manufacturers are discouraged to produce more goods or services because of payment of higher taxes. More production means higher taxes, which is costly on the part of the manufacturer. 6. Weather. This also affects the level on the supply of goods, especially agricultural goods. During rainy season, typhoons are expected, so that there will be a decrease in the supply of agricultural goods like vegetables and the like. Equilibrium. This is the intersection between demand and supply curve. This means that when there is more demand than the supply, there will be shortage of goods or services, and the tendency is for the price to increase. If there is more supply of goods than the quantity demanded, there is a surplus of goods or services, and the tendency is for the price to decrease. Table shows that the supply and demand schedule for sugar indicates that the quantity supplied and quantity demanded varies. When the price of sugar is 26 pesos per kilo, the firms are willing to supply the market with 13,000 kilograms, which is exactly the same with the quantity demanded at the same price. Take note that when sugar are sold at 28 peso, there will be a surplus of sugar in the market because there will be less buyers. Whereas if sugar are sold at 24 peso, there will be more buyers and the tendency will be shortage of sugar. Price equilibrium. When the demand and supply are equal, it is called price equilibrium. If the price is below the equilibrium, there is a shortage, while if the price is above the equilibrium, there is a surplus. Quantity. Figure shows that the equilibrium is set at the point where the quantity demanded intersects the quantity supplied. When the price of sugar is below 26 pesos, shortage occurs because the quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. If the price is above 26 pesos, surplus occurs because the quantity demanded is lesser than the quantity supplied. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.